In a moment, we'll get started with the actual content, but just as a quick overview of Zoom, in case you are not familiar with the platform. First of all, if you're having any challenges with your video or with your volume, there's a little microphone logo and a video logo, and there's an arrow next to those that can help give you a little bit of troubleshooting. If you've got problems, though, you can click on the chat little dialogue bubble and send me a message or send one to everyone just saying, please help, and we can try to help you out. Throughout the webinars, we talk about RIIPEN and the platform and on the opportunity that we're here to discuss. Please post questions or comments that you may have in that chat box, and we'll make sure that they get addressed if it doesn't feel like quite the right time to ask a question or to bring up something. And we'll make sure to keep the conversation relevant to you by reviewing the chat box and making sure those questions get asked. So type away, type madly, and put your questions in there. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for spending time with us this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Alexis, to talk about kind of the evolution of this partnership and why we're all here, basically.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. So, hi, I'm Alexis. I'm the Executive Director of Utah Campus Compact, and it's great to see so many familiar faces on the call, both from Utah, and then I used to work with Chetan at Berkeley. So, a bit of history on how we developed a relationship with RIIPEN. So, it's appropriate that Earl's on the call because RIIPEN actually attended the Engaged Learning Leadership Institute here in Salt Lake City, or actually officially Park City, last year, and or I guess it was earlier this year. It's all a blur now. But anyway, it was really great that she attended that, and I had a chance to connect with her and get a little bit of information about their platform, and actually connected her with Ian at California Campus Compact, and their extended conversation resulted in sort of an idea generation that we'd like to provide an opportunity for institutions that are members of our compacts, either California, Utah, or Mountain West, to pilot this platform and see if it's a useful tool for the community engagement, but it can also be used for other forms of engaged learning as well. Obviously, we're a bit biased towards community engagement for obvious reasons, but we were very pleased that she and the other folks at RIIPEN were open to that, and as a consequence, we endeavored to put together a proposal, which we'll cover more of the details of later in the webinar. But we're excited to have this opportunity. Natalie is from RIIPEN and a representative of their organization, and then Chetan will be offering some specific sort of tutorial and information on his use of it with the Global Poverty and Practice minor at UC Berkeley. So with that, I will turn it over to, I believe, Natalie. And I will mute myself so I don't distract.
Perfect. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and so we can get started. And play our presentation. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. I see some thumbs up. I see some nodding. That's fantastic. So yeah, I think Alexis gave a good sort of intro to RIIPEN and how we all got connected. And I'll just kick us off with an agenda, and then we'll do a welcome and introductions and talk about who's on the call. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about RIIPEN as a company and who we are, where we're at, and what we're doing. And then a little bit more on why Campus Compact and RIIPEN, and specifically bringing in a conversation about the Carnegie Community Engagement Classification. There are some specific areas that the RIIPEN platform can really help support organizations in that reapplication or new application for that's coming out next year. I'm also going to give a product demo to show you a little bit about RIIPEN and how it works. And then we'll talk more about the fall 2018 Campus Compact and RIIPEN pilot that actually is going to kick off with a little bit of training in the spring. And then the application process, and of course leave time at the end for Q&A. I also, I'll pause throughout the presentation to see if there's any questions, but feel free to post them in the chat, and I'll answer the questions as they come up. So on the call, of course, we have Alexis, who introduced herself from Utah. We have Stephanie, who is from the Mountain West, Elaine from California. And then Alexis introduced Chetan Chowdhury from Berkeley. And he's going to talk specifically about his experience using the platform. And when we kick off the product demo, he's really going to kick us off with his assignment and talking about how he created it. And then my name is Natalie. I'm a representative of RIIPEN. I'm actually the only U.S. employee at the moment, helping sort of them expand into the United States, because as you'll learn in just a moment, RIIPEN is a company that's based in Vancouver, Canada. So moving on to a little bit about RIIPEN. So it's a Canadian company that was started about 3.5 years ago. And it was started by 2 graduate students who recognized the problem of, you know, I need experience in order to get a job, but I also need a job and experience before I can actually get a job. And so they created the platform to integrate into curriculum to provide students with faculty-centered, project-based learning experiences with external partners. So the goal of the platform is really to connect students with local, regional, and global organizations. The idea is that these engagements will be short-term, either semester-long or shorter, and project-based. So what makes RIIPEN really different from some other platforms you may have seen out there is that what we focus on is a curriculum integrated learning. So your learning outcomes, the skills that you need students to gain that are sort of based on those learning outcomes within your syllabus are what's driving the projects that we connect your students with. Right now we have over 200 U.S. colleges and universities. We have professors at over 200 U.S. colleges and universities using RIIPEN. And just in full disclosure, we provide the platform to individual professors, and Chetan's a good example of this, to utilize you know, for free so they can connect with the organizations. So yeah, RIIPEN really believes that giving students the opportunity to connect in their community and their field of interest prepares them to be better citizens and prepares them for their careers. So that's what RIIPEN is. This graphic really demonstrates, we put educators at the top of our priority list. The educators, the professors, teachers, you all drive what happens in our platform, and we'll show that in the assignment creation. So basically what happens is, as a professor, if you decide you want to include some community engagement opportunities, an opportunity for your students to connect with outside organizations, what you'll do is create what we call an assignment. And that assignment is completely customizable based on your course and your learning outcomes, your needs, the dates of the course, what types of organizations you would like to work with. And then what happens with that is we take that assignment and we source organizations for you depending on your parameters. So if you live in Chicago, for example, and you would only like to work with local organizations, we can work hard to source local organizations for you to work with. Or if you want to give your students the opportunity to work remotely for a global organization, we have those types of organizations in our industry partners as well. So you can kind of see these are the 3 user types that we bring into our software. So we've got educators, we have industry, and we have students. And we have all these different modules that connect all of those users in one place. So the educators have the opportunity to drive how they want the outreach to go and who they want to connect with, so what types of organizations. The industry partners can then connect with those assignments, and then students get valuable feedback from the community organizations and or industry partners, depending on what kind of engagement it is, through evaluation. So we require all organizations to give students evaluations, and then students also walk away with an e-portfolio, and I'll show you examples of all of that. So that's kind of RIIPEN in general, in a nutshell. And I want to jump into, well, first I want to see if anyone has any questions. Does anyone have any burning questions? You're welcome to either unmute yourself or put them in chat. Any questions specifically about RIIPEN?
I have one quick question, Natalie. And so if this, I mean, the language is really framed around academic engagement, but for co-curricular engagement, as long as there were sort of identified learning outcomes, the process would be the same. It's just that the language is more geared toward curricular engagement, correct?
Exactly. So we actually have two different types of, we call them experiences. So you can create an academic experience or you can create a general experience. The academic experience is within class, so it's curricular. The other general experience category is for any co-curricular experience. You can actually, Chaitan's a good example.
Yeah.
It's for if you want to add more to that, Chaitan.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say, I serve as director of student programs for this academic minor, but the fieldwork component for which we use RIIPEN's help is actually not directly tied to a particular course. There's coursework that students take before it and after, but otherwise the actual fieldwork that students are doing with organizations, they're not getting any unit credit for directly. And so in that way, it's kind of hybrid and would be pretty similar to other co-curricular kinds of programs where students are just seeking to do certain kind of work or learn about a certain set of issues through this experiential component that RIIPEN helps facilitate.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll get a chance to hear more from Chaitan about his particular assignment and get more background on the program as well as we dive into that product demo. So I want to kind of go back to the why Campus Compact and RIIPEN, why we've really come together. And in full disclosure, I haven't worked at a community engagement organization. I've been in higher ed for about 10 years. But I did a little bit of research on the application itself, and I found some really useful insights from Carnegie about 2015 applications. So they gave some really great general feedback on how different colleges and universities could enhance their applications for the 2020 application process, which is going to be announced next year. And I wanted to share those pieces of general feedback because I think there are a few of these bullet points that RIIPEN specifically can support institutions in. So in general, the feedback was that colleges and universities need to do a better job of assessing community perceptions of institutional engagement, tracking and recording institution-wide engagement data, assessing the impact of community engagement on students, faculty, community, and the institution, identifying and assessing student learning outcomes in curricular engagement, creating ongoing feedback mechanisms for partnerships, nurturing reciprocal and mutual partnerships, incentivizing and recognizing community engagement in teaching and learning, internal collaboration between departments, and recognizing and documenting engagement by students. So some of these things, obviously, RIIPEN or any software platform wouldn't be able to help with. But what I've done on the next slide is really highlighted the 4 areas that RIIPEN can really support. And those areas are to track and record institution-wide engagement data. So one of the things that the RIIPEN platform does is when you get a cohort of professors who are using the RIIPEN platform, and those professors can be, or offices, organizations, whomever, if you get a cohort, what you can do is track and record who is having these community engagement experiences? How many students, how many organizations are we working with as an institution? How many organizations is one department working with versus another department? So you can really track and record that institution-wide data. You can also identify and assess student learning outcomes within curricular engagement. So if there's an academic-driven assignment that's created on RIIPEN, you can assess students' learning outcomes and skills that they've gained through that experience. You can also incentivize and recognize community engagement in teaching and learning. You can identify which professors are utilizing RIIPEN to connect their students with community organizations, and of course identify or incentivize and recognize those professors in teaching and learning. And then again, recognizing and documenting engagement by students. So one of the outcomes of the RIIPEN platform is that students get an e-portfolio that collects all of the projects they've completed on RIIPEN. It collects all of their assessments that they've received. And so they get a resource that they keep for free that they can share in the future of all the projects they've done. So wanted to highlight sort of those 4 areas. And as I walk through the demo, I'll also mention those as we go along. So we're going to jump into a product demo right now, and just want to, let's see, I have to escape out of this. Hold on, I have to bump over to this view here. I want to give Chayton the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit more about his assignment, his experience with RIIPEN, and maybe a little bit more about your department as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I manage this undergraduate academic minor called Global Poverty and Practice. Essentially, and Alexis, as she mentioned, used to work with this program as well. We worked together for 2 years. And so now this program, has evolved a bit, but is very much in the same format from the foundation that Alexis started when she started with the program. Essentially, students take a series of courses on issues of poverty and inequality and study different approaches to addressing those issues. And the key component of the program is fieldwork that students do. So for a minimum of 6 weeks, they are expected to work with some kind of organization. It could be a nonprofit, for-profit, school, hospital, any kind of organization that's doing work to alleviate poverty in some way. So they're expected to work with an organization to learn about their particular approach of poverty alleviation and to also contribute to that organization's work. So as likely the case with all of your programs, expectation is for it to be a mutually beneficial experience. And our model has been, since the founding of the program 10 years ago, is that students are the ones who go out and identify their own fieldwork. And we provide advising and support to them to do that, but ultimately the students are the ones who are expected to reach out to organizations, agree upon the terms of what they'll do and when they'll work with them. And we then have a process to approve that. And we have usually around 300 students in the program in any given year, and about a third of those are doing their field work. So and I'm the one key staff advisor, and we have student advisors, but it's a lot of work to advise and to work with students who are coming from so many different disciplines and all with their own particular interest in what they're seeking to do for their field in both here in the US and abroad. And so we got connected to RIIPEN last year through a graduate student who's working in our office, and thought it would be a good opportunity to try out getting some support with actually identifying some of the fieldwork opportunities for students. So it's not just them on their own, that we can start providing additional opportunities to them. So yeah, last year we got started a little bit late in the cycle of when students tend to look for their fieldwork, just because we didn't know about RIIPEN before then. But we were still able to get some help from RIIPEN to identify about, it was at least 20 organizations who students could look through and see if it aligned with their goals and interests and skills. Because we were kind of late in the process, we ended up having 2 students who matched up with organizations through that platform, but they were both successful experiences. One was with Kiva, large microfinance organization based in San Francisco, and another with Goodwill Industries. Kiva was a notable one because their application cycle for their regular internships don't typically work with the timeline for when our students need to identify their field work. But RIIPEN was able to actually speak with them, and I crafted out a volunteer role that was separate from their regular internship cycle. And so we were able to have a student go and work with them, which is actually an organization that's pretty high in demand in terms of students seeking to gain access to having an internship or any kind of work with them. So on our end, we felt it was quite successful and just kind of a pilot year, getting a late start. And so we're continuing to work with them this year. Last year, the platform as it looks like now, which Natalie will go into, was very different. I mean, essentially, we were working off of a Google Doc that we had one specific person at RIIPEN who was the person we were communicating with, and they would continue to add to the Google Doc. Here's a new organization. Here's the information about their project description and their contact information. Go ahead and call them, have a 10-minute conversation to just make sure what we are looking for in our fieldwork aligns with the type of opportunity they're able to provide. So I did that, and it worked out well. But now they have this really cool platform, which we're excited to work with this year, that will allow us and others who are using it to log in more thoroughly and in more detail the organizations that have interest in this particular assignment and the students who are matching up with them. So yeah.
That's perfect. And I think that the point about, Kiva specifically, that the timeline didn't work with their existing internship program, but that we were sort of able to contact a person to set up a new volunteer experience. I think that's another thing that makes us really different, is that we aren't an internship platform. So what we do is connect to the right people at the organization to get the right students connected with the right experience. So, we work outside of the constructs of an HR department, for example. So most of our students work with people who are actually doing the work in the field that they would like to be doing. So I think that's an important nuance. Yeah. So I'm not going to. I want to show you how the assignment creation works. I'm not going to do that in this particular assignment because I don't want to. It's live right now, so we're going to go into our demo university, and I'll show you how this whole process works. And feel free to ask me questions along the way. I'm happy to be interrupted if you need points of clarification or have questions.
So Natalie, this is Elaine. There's a couple questions in the chat thing right now. One that I asked, I noticed on the last screen that there was a $500 fee that the community agency has to pay. And I was just curious if that's a one-time fee, or if they're partnering with different faculty, they have to pay that fee every time, or if they're partnering with different campuses in the same area, that they have to pay it every time, because that seems a little challenging for the agency.
Yeah. Jaden, do you have
Sure.
something to add about that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was a concern on our end too, because just ethically, we didn't want NGOs, particularly who are struggling to run their operations, to to have to pay, $500 or $1,000 to have our students work with them. And so what I got assurance from RIPEN was that for large organizations and companies, which is what I believe, like when RIPEN started out, they were working more on in engineering classes, seeking out engineering partners, and so those large companies, those fees were charged. But for organizations who could show that that's a burdensome fee, that they were able to waive the fee, or
Okay.
so either waive or reduce the fee significantly.
Yeah, so
that made us more comfortable.
Yeah, you nailed it. So yes, RIPEN does work with small to medium organizations in the private sector. Those organizations pay a fee if their project is approved by the professor or by the student. So it's only if they're actually connected with the project. But we provide a waiver for the professor, whoever is administering the experience, to provide to community organizations, nonprofits. Basically, from our perspective, we feel like that fee can go towards other work that is way more important than our platform. So we do charge private businesses a fee to connect with students, but we waive that fee for NGOs and community organizations, and it's at the professor's discretion as well. So I think I can show you. We basically, here we go. So we provide, that's the student code. I don't think you can see it, but basically we provide the professor with a code to give to nonprofits, community organizations to waive that connection fee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So what I want to do is really quickly walk through the assignment creation, so you can see all of the ways that you can customize an assignment or an experience. That's what we call the two different experiences. So what you can do, let's say this is an in-class project or in-class assignment. You can add the course name, the internal course code, the term, the dates, what year your students are. So this is all, customizable. There's a few narrative sections where you can add summaries of what you expect students to do, what their general topics of learning should be. You can also indicate whether this is an individual or a group experience. So if you want a group of your students to go into one organization, you can designate that as well. Start dates, end dates, and hours per student. And then you can also give examples of what students could be doing for organizations. So then we ask that you select categories of areas that this project might fall under. And these are extremely general. And the only thing that these three sections do is we have a matching and promotion system that will actually promote your assignment to organizations within our network. But where you can get really specific is down here in these domain specific skills that the students would like to show, that you would like the students to showcase. So this is an important section because what these skills do is at the very end of the assignment, let's say a student has completed a project with an organization, they're going to get evaluated on these skills. So they get a star evaluation on each of the skills and then a narrative evaluation from the organization they've worked with. And those evaluations, students can actually choose to post publicly on their ePortfolio.
Can I ask a quick question about the skills piece?
Yeah.
Can you could you add in, if it's something that's not on here, but is an important skill that you want your students to come out of it with?
Yes.
You can add whatever you want.
Yeah, these are completely customizable. So we have suggested skills up here, but you can put community engagement, community relations. You can add whatever you would like to add here. So in this section, you can talk about learning outcomes that you want students to gain or deliverables that they need to have by the end of the experience. You also have the opportunity to add milestones. So one of the things that we heard back from professors is that it's sometimes really difficult to manage the process in these timelines because, you know, you're teaching courses, you're administering a minor, like Chaitin was talking about. So what you can do is add milestones where you know, okay, I need to have a midpoint check-in with students on this date in the middle of the semester to make sure everything's going okay. And these are completely customizable. And what they do is send an email reminder to the student to remind them that they have a milestone coming up. So I'm going to remove that. You can also indicate how many organizations you would like your students to work with, and then the type of organizations. So you can designate nonprofit, family-owned, startup, whatever you would like. And then you are also able to add the industry types here. If you would like to do that, you can also leave it blank if you'd like. And then you can designate the location. So organizations can be sourced from anywhere, or regionally within your state, or locally, which is 30 miles from your campus. So you get to have the power to manage that. And so what we're doing here, I just want to make sure it's clear, what we're doing is creating an assignment for your needs and what you need that is going to be shared with organizations. And those organizations are then going to submit to be a part of this assignment. They're going to submit a project that meets your parameters. So what you're saying here, are there any commitments that organizations need to make in order to work with my students? So for example, if you have a risk form that you need organizations to fill out, or some kind of application, or if the engagement needs to be in person for a certain number of hours per week, you can designate that here in the commitments, and that will actually show up. I'm going to go back to the Berkeley assignment. That'll actually show up right here in the project commitment, so that any organization that is looking at your assignment can say, yes, I can meet all of those commitments before I join as an organization.
So sorry to interrupt again. I just want to make sure if there's a
Okay.
campus or a course that there's already an existing partnership or community partner identified, does that change at all, or is there a way to indicate that it's not needed to, I mean, like, you want to use the platform to track the student learning outcomes and such, but that there's already some organization that's been selected to work with?
So let me make sure I'm understanding your question, Stephanie. So if I'm at UC Berkeley and I already have an organization that I want to work on this particular assignment, is that what you're saying? That they? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, what that organization would do is still come into the platform and join as an organization. Again, we would provide the professor with a waiver to give to that organization to waive our fee. But they can still use the RIIPEN platform to join this particular project, and then that would track the learning outcomes for the students.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's an important piece, is that the assignment wizard that we just went through creates this public view of your assignment that you can share with your existing organizations and partners that you work with. And then those existing partners they also get a waiver for the fee because our team did not source those organizations. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle.
Great, thanks for clarifying, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So the next step is that this is shared with organizations, and then those organizations then submit projects that fit the parameters of the assignment that you've created. So it fits your learning outcomes, it fits your timeline, it fits the location of the organizations. And then what you can do as an educator is come in and review the projects and then approve the ones that are a good fit for your students. Once those are approved, you can go sort of two different avenues. You can assign specific organizations to specific students, or you can open up the project page to all of your students and just say, hey, it's first come, first serve. Review the projects I've approved, and you can go ahead and start whichever organization you feel is a good fit for you. So that's kind of the logistics of how we match organizations. And I think an important piece of the puzzle also is that RIIPEN is not just a technology platform. We're also a service company. So I think Chayton can talk to this, but we do have a lot of support for professors to create the assignments. We support you, of course, in sourcing organizations if you need that support. And we don't leave folks high and dry and let you sort of navigate the technology on your own.
Yeah. We had a dedicated person last year and also this year who reached out to me in the summer to say, hey, would you like to continue using RIIPEN? Let me show you, the new platform, and if you have any questions, let me know. And she'd check in with me periodically, say, here's the status update. So on that end, it's been really supportive. Getting started with the platform was a little bit, it took a little time for us to adjust in terms of how we were articulating this experience, because we had our learning outcomes, but there was also the sense that organizations would also want to see what are some of the deliverables that students could provide. So we had to kind of take stock of what are some of the common things that students actually produce or contribute to organizations. It was a good process for us to just kind of catalog that and then share that with the RIIPEN, with our RIIPEN coordinator. At the time, we were just sharing that information with them, and they were helping populate the website. Now, a lot going through it this year, we were able to do that all on our own. But in this new platform, it was more intuitive than before, and yeah, pretty simple process. But the support is there when we've needed it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's important. We have both academic support and support on the organization side as well. So, we have if you would like it, we have folks available who can help sort of, tweak language to make it work and help you find the right organizations to work with. So to wrap up the platform demo, I just want to share the student portfolio that they get at the end of every basically every project that they complete through RIIPEN. They get these verified skills, and what you need to know is the verified skills come from that the assignment wizard that you create in the very beginning. So those are completely customizable to your needs. And then the students get a narrative evaluation that is more of a public narrative evaluation that's positive, that they can share on their portfolio if they would like. They also get private feedback that is a little bit more constructive. And note that all of that feedback goes to the student and to the professor. So that's really the full circle of the platform. There's a lot more to show you. But I really want to keep it simple, so we leave plenty of time to talk about the pilot and the application process and leave plenty of time for questions. So I'm going to shift back over to the presentation. And I feel like if there are questions specifically about the product, now is probably a good time to answer those. So why don't we do that first before we move on to the next step? If there are any. Let's see.
Is your company planning to change language or resources to better interface with those of us who promote community engagement? It seems that you're very industry or business oriented in finding people jobs with the skills they have, but is your company going to transition in a way that might more broadly support the things that we do in community engagement?
So that is a great question, and that's also one of the reasons why we're all coming together, that we would like to learn how best to do that. So we're looking for, some universities who will help us learn how best to support your needs. I think the great thing is that we have the skeleton there. We have, sort of like what Chayton was saying, is that it's all there, but we have a lot to learn from you all on how to shift our language to make it better support your needs. Yeah.
So there's a question, I don't know if you can see the chat box, Natalie, from Tracy Reed.
Yes, I can. So can the assignment information integrate to other portfolio platforms? This is a great question. So within the next 6 months, we are building out integrations with, I believe, with Canvas and Blackboard. And we also have, technical speak, we have an open API. So if whatever organization you work with, whatever company, LinkedIn is not an option. LinkedIn doesn't integrate with anything, unfortunately. But like I said, we have an open API. So anyone who wants to play nice with us, we can play nice with them. It just is more of a technical conversation with that organization. So yeah, within the next 6 months, you will see integrations for both Canvas and Blackboard. And beyond that, we'll kind of share as we go what other integrations are possible. Let's see. I think that's all the questions for now. So we'll go ahead and move on to the pilot and really what we're talking about here. So the pilot is an opportunity for selected Campus Compact members to use RIIPEN for their classes for free in fall of 2018. And the goal is for this spring to get everyone on the platform, trained up. Our team will offer a series of webinars for training and support in creating your assignments. And I'm going to go over the benefits, and then I'm going to pass it over to, I think, Alexis to talk about the application. So really, Campus Compact members will benefit in the following ways. So reduce barriers to incorporate community engagement. You'll be able to track analytics and learning outcomes, build and cultivate connections with community organizations. Students get their e-portfolios. They can be used forever for free. And then in 2019, we're going to offer a discounted RIIPEN subscription that has that LMS integration that I was talking about. So we are going to gain a few things from this. We're going to garner feedback to build RIIPEN's capacity to serve in community engagement needs and outcomes, expand our university adoption in the U.S., and also grow our network of organizations that U.S. institutions work with as well. So I'm going to pass it off to the Campus Compact team, and I did see a question pop up. Let's see. Additional fee for taking advantage of there's not going to be an additional fee for taking advantage of the LMS integration. Thanks, Tracy. So yeah, so what we're discussing is a discounted fee for any Campus Compact any Campus Compact university to utilize RIIPEN's full capacity. So, all right, so let's talk about application process and requirements. I think that's Alexis who was going to do that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Do you want me to pull
Stephanie.
up yeah,
that's right. Sorry.
It's okay. I want to stop sharing your other screen. Okay, so we are going to, let's see. I am going to move. I've got all my screens in different places. All right, so we created a hopefully pretty straightforward application process on Submittable, and we'll be sending links out to folks that are interested. And really it's asking for just a few things. One is a letter of support from, if you're part of a Center for Community Engagement, from director, or a department chair if you're part of a department, or some other kind of administrator that is at that level, just to make sure that it is supported by folks at the institution. identifying 3 to 5, at least, it can be more than that, community engagement nodes. And for folks like me who don't use the word node in normal conversation, really we're talking about experiences. So whether that's a course or it's a co-curricular experience, it is a project to participate. And so like it says here, it can be curricular, co-curricular, internships, whatever that looks like, and is a good area to start with at your institution. And then agreement to participate in some learning community webinars, and really that will be trying to set up and establish, as Natalie was saying before, if there are ways that we can learn from one another around the language that can be used that best fits the experience of and partnership with RIIPEN, or what the learning outcomes and skills are, where we can really collect some meaningful data around student engagement, whatever that looks like. And then that will also include support for setting up profiles and all the information on the RIIPEN platform. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. So which affiliate you're with, what institution you are, who the primary contact will be, and what office or department they live and exist in. And then a couple of agreements, really it's just around that participation in the learning community, and that RIIPEN needs, at least 8 weeks prior to the start date of any of those experiences to be able to build out and develop the platform so that it does what it needs to do and looks the way it needs to look. 2 things to submit. One is the letter of support that includes the letter of support, and then who's going to be participating. So what courses, what experiences are going to be there, and then your logo, and that's it. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward. Questions on the application? I love it when I do such a good job that nobody has questions.
I'm just curious if there's this is Earl.
Hi.
Are you looking for a certain number of institutions to make this pilot a success? Do you have any goals you're shooting for here?
That's a great question. I think we weren't sure how many people would be interested in this. I think we'd love to get at least 2 campuses in each of our states to participate.
That's a little easier in California than Utah, but yeah. Nevertheless, we have great participation on this call.
Yes, me too.
Lane, I have a quick question. I type it on the chat. I'm Maria from Channel Islands in Camarillo, and in my projects, because I teach social business, I have 2 types of community partners. I work with traditional nonprofits that have already gone through our community center of engagement, and you know Pilar very well. But I also work with either small entrepreneurs or even for-profit companies that obviously are social entrepreneurs. So my question is, within this pilot, will be working with both types of community partners, or we just want to stick to our traditional definition of CPs?
No, I think this platform actually is very open. You can do both.
No, I know, but I'm worried about the pilot specifically.
The pilot is for us to figure out, number one, for you to get comfortable with the system and see if it'll work for you. Okay. But I also think it's a great opportunity for us to explore those partnerships with some on the for-profit side that usually then the community engagement side will say, no, don't do that. So I hope that answers your question, that we're open, and that because this is a pilot, we'll be figuring out some of these different what's working well, what's not, and working with RIIPEN also to figure out, this type of community partner, the platform you have doesn't quite work right, or we need to add these categories in or collect this information, or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say that for us is one of the things that we're really hoping in our partnership with RIIPEN to get out of it. On our assignment, one of the particular types of groups we're looking to get some help with finding are social entrepreneurship types of opportunities, because those are ones that students also have difficulty finding on their own. Whereas they have sometimes easier time finding a local just regular nonprofit. So that again is where I see actually a strength of RIIPEN, and that they're an additional set of people to help find those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you might have missed it on the product demo, but right now we have two different sort of experience types. One is that in-class experience, and the other is what we're calling a case competition. And we're basically looking to expand those options. So one other option could be community engagement or social entrepreneurship, or, whatever. I think this pilot is a good time to sort of talk about what inclusions would be helpful, what language would be useful, and how we can sort of build that out. Perfect. Well, I think I need to hop back to the
We have one more question, just real quick. Yeah, go for it.
Good.
Question. So I'm wondering, Stephanie asked earlier about getting community partners that we're already working with into the system. So I'm wondering, I guess it seems to me like the benefits of RIIPEN are really in the assisting with matchmaking, but if I already have community partners, what is it that the platform is going to provide me as a benefit? What happens after the match is made in the system? I know there's the tracking of the learning outcomes, and I don't want to sound negative. It looks pretty on the screen. Yeah. We tracked it already. So what is the system, what are the benefits beyond the matchmaking?
Yeah, Chetan, do you want to take that one?
The new platform has more functionality that I can't speak to because we haven't fully used it in that way. And we didn't put in existing partners that we already had. So I may have you actually respond to that.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So the platform has various functionality. So once an organization is connected with an assignment, students can use the platform to submit any requirements that are required by that assignment. So they can submit documentation, they can submit we don't have it tracking for hours, but they could submit, an Excel sheet with their hours. They can submit any kind of documents they need. There's also a chat function within the platform. So anyone who's involved in that project can communicate with each other on the platform. And then at the very end, the students do get those learning outcomes. And what organizations can also do is and this is more for the business side, but I think it's relevant for the community side as well. Those organizations can actually add students to what we call their talent pool. So they can say, hey, I worked with this really fantastic student. I want to track where they're at in the future, just in case I have a hiring opportunity or a volunteer opportunity or something in the future. They can actually add those students to what we call their talent pool as well. So those are kind of the various things that the platform does that I wasn't able to show you in a short period of time.
And I would add that, the students actually get the feedback because of those evaluations. Not that you don't already have a way for that to happen, but within this platform, then there's the evaluations that take place and that can become part of their e-portfolio.
Right.
I'm struggling a little bit more with so what does a faculty member get out of it? Except hopefully this platform facilitates some easier record keeping and also documentation and whatnot, but also maybe with the the link to the learning outcomes, if you were interested in trying to track a class over time, maybe there could be then for your own research and writing up the student learning assessment piece. If you were writing an article on how your class does or doesn't, having a community engagement component to your class maybe in some way might assist you in that way.
I think for the individual faculty member, especially if you're trying to get more faculty to incorporate service learning or community engagement into their classes, saying, here, I have this platform and I have a set of people who are going to be helping find these partners, that reduces a huge barrier to wanting to consider that, because otherwise you've all probably bumped into this. Faculty member will say that's way more work in addition to the regular work that you have to do. So I think just that structure
I will say there's a concern that I have around that is that in our world, the best experiential learning type of situation that we're trying to promote is that the faculty have a strong connection, and I know, Carla, you're agreeing with that, that it is about building a relationship with that community partner. So, but it could be an entry point for a faculty member who is a little bit more hesitant, isn't involved in their community, doesn't have those. Whereas, and then maybe we are able to then move them along to a point where, I mean, it does say they're required to have at least a half-hour connection on the phone. And maybe out of that grows the beginning of a great relationship where it's reciprocal, that maybe eventually that community partner becomes a co-educator. I mean, it's something we could hope for, but maybe it is an entry point for some of those faculty who have been a little more reluctant to enter into this because they think, how am I going to find those folks to send my students to?
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, and I think that is part of our requirements, Elaine, that we do require organizations and professors to communicate with each other and have a conversation. It's important. It's important to us for them to have that relationship and to sort of kick that off. But yeah.
So just in the interest of time, we have a couple more minutes, and I'd just like to be a time stickler because everyone's busy. But I want to make sure that, Natalie, you have gotten through what you wanted to share, and then also if there are remaining questions or comments in general, that we have a couple minutes for those to rise to the surface.
Yeah, well, so I was going to add everyone's email addresses, but I didn't have time before we kicked off. But my understanding is if you're interested to email your state rep or Mountain West person, as Stephanie is, multiple states, to get that application moving forward. And that's really the end of what I wanted to share. And I really appreciate everyone's time and your questions and conversation. This is a really great opportunity for RIIPEN to learn from all of you, and hopefully a great opportunity to provide a platform that will help you in your work as well. So
yeah, I want to, sorry, I'm going to interrupt Stephanie, as I always do. I do want to thank Natalie and Chatham for taking the time to put this presentation together for us. If any faculty who are on the call do you want to email us and let us know you're interested, we will then, as she said, get you the application. And then so you can see on the screen the deadline is February 1st to turn those in, to fill that out. And then we'll pretty quickly turn around and get you connected into this learning community. We'll set up maybe even prior to February 1st, but a series of conference calls that we'll do, or webinars that we'll do over the spring, because we want to move you forward so you're ready to implement in the fall. No. You're actually going to implement in the spring?
Yeah. No, fall.
Okay.
Got it. Yes.
Got it right.
So, of course, at any time you can email Stephanie, Alexis, myself for more information. And because Stephanie, our wonderful Stephanie, recorded this, if you have other faculty that you know of that maybe said to you they couldn't be on this, but they were interested, you can point them to this webinar, and Stephanie will probably maybe send a follow-up email with some of those links.
We can do it. Kara?
Yeah, so I'm not entirely clear on what the fees and the cost are associated with this. So is there no fee with the pilot, but there will be a fee? Like I'm confused if it's by the individual educator or by the university or by a unit. So any clarification on that would be helpful.
Yeah, so there's no fee for the pilot. So basically the engagement that we would have for spring of 2018 and fall of 2018, there's no fee. If you decide that the RIIPEN platform is great for your department, for your organization, for your campus, there is a fee to basically expand. There's another level to the software that we provide that provides insight into all experiential learning that's happening across your campus. for anyone who's using the platform. So there's a fee to add that next layer. And for Campus Compact, we're basically providing a very discounted fee for anyone who participates in the pilot who wants to extend their subscription to include that sort of added layer. And right now, I'll just, you can plan for this. The fee is $5,000 per academic year. That's the discount that we're offering for the first year. And then the next year, basically, the fees are assessed based on the number of experiences that you have through the platform.
So the goal, longer term goal would be that there's enough, maybe as a department, your whole department, if you have a good number of faculty who are doing engagement and they all get on the platform, then you could be doing some departmental level or campus-wide level assessment of learning outcomes and so forth. If there was a good critical mass of faculty on your campus, and that's where they would pay that campus fee or departmental fee to be able to have access to the higher level. But as an individual faculty member, right now for the pilot, as Natalie said, there is no cost, and so that's why we were hoping to get quite a few faculty from different campuses who want to try it out, or several from the same campus who want to try it out. Whether or not you could continue on an individual faculty level after, let's say you don't have enough people on your campus, that would be a conversation you would have with Natalie or whoever the representative is that you're working with, to find out whether or not, until you could get more people on your campus and have a campus-wide, could you continue to use it as an individual faculty, and that would be a conversation you'd have to have later.
Yeah, so what we know, just so you know, what we know is that higher level sort of view is not valuable until you have sort of a cohort of 5 to 7 professors who have been using the platform for a while. So with that in mind, what we do is we offer the platform to professors for free to use individually, but all that professor can see is their class, their students, and their organizations that they're working with. So if you did, out of this pilot, decide, okay, we're really excited about RIIPEN, we'd like to expand it to more parts of our institution, get more professors on board using it, you can decide either to start in spring of 2019 and get started with that discounted rate, or take a little bit more time to get more professors involved, and those professors would not have to pay an individual fee in order to do that. So that's how it works. We don't charge individual professors for using the platform.
All right. Hopefully, Kara, that gave you a little bit more information about that piece. And we can put, there's contact information, so for follow-up questions, etc., get in touch with Alexis, Elaine, myself, or Natalie directly. And thank you guys all. I'm going to go ahead and cut us off because we're 5 minutes late and I start getting anxiety when I run.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll send out the link to the recording, and feel free to share at will.